Mackenzie Johnston with Tri-State Livestock News, bringing you discussions concerning fair cattle markets. Today we have the opportunity to chat with Curtis Martin of North Powder, Oregon. Curtis is a well-known figure across Oregon as both a rancher and an activist. Can you tell me a little bit about your background, where you're located, and your involvement within the cattle industry?
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm native Eastern Oregonian, born and raised close to the Idaho border, and so Eastern Oregon is very dry. It's pretty much desert. Anything that we raise here for crops, it pretty much has to be irrigated. And I was born into a ranch and been that my whole life. I knew from early on that that was what I was going to choose to be my vocation in life. I became involved in kind of politics in the early 90s because Oregon really was examining the water rights, and the environmental aspects were really having a strong push into making them as equal to or of greater importance than our adjudicated water rights. And so that really was alarming, because without water, without our ability to use water, we do not exist in Eastern Oregon. And so that started kind of my trek or my involvement in politics and on water issues. So I became a Water Resources Committee person, and then became the chair of that. Oh gosh, I don't remember what year it was, but well over 20 years ago, I guess. And from that, I got involved in another organization called Water for Life that grew out of the Klamath Basin tragedy and continues to this day, the debacle down there. And then went ahead and kind of went through the chain of command in Oregon Cattlemen's. And I was Oregon Cattlemen's president from 2011 to 2013. And I look back at that and really am honored to be chosen by fellow ranchers to represent them, and it was a great 2 years. It was both really super rewarding, but very taxing, because it's hard. Your heart and soul is in it, and you're trying to make a difference. The slant of Oregon toward, the left, socialistic and denial of private property rights is very prevalent in Oregon. It's really the socialist state of Oregon. Now, I'm a board member, accidental board member on Water for Life. I'm still very active and board member of U.S. Cattlemen's. I represent Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii, and that is a real honor. It's just so neat to be involved with an organization that is true grassroots, rancher-driven leadership. I mean, it's just really great. Also an Oregon Beef Council board member, treasurer on that group. I've been really working hard for a long time, trying to get the vertical integration less grasp on what we are out here, especially in the Northwest. Washington Beef, Agri-Beef, and Tyson Foods just basically have it. I mean, it's a vertically integrated system out here totally. There's no negotiated cattle sales. It's horrendous. I've always made the comment that Tyson Foods is in Malula Junction, and it's just across the border into Washington there. But, the comment that if Tyson Foods sneezes, the rancher has got pneumonia. And then you've got the feedlots are totally aligned with them, the custom feedlots. And they know that if they can't breathe a word of distance, because they'll just cut them off. Well, you know how it is. The intimidation factor it's not only intimidation, it's honest retribution, that they will destroy them. And so the major feedlots, they're just total mouthpieces for Tyson Foods. And Agri-Beef isn't that bad, but they're sure riding on the coattails of that intimidation. They've got a lock on everything, and that's just the way it is. I still own cattle. I'm kind of semi-retired, still actively engaged in trying to get the Oregon beef count. Well, actually, we're making some progress and actually making a difference. And there's a special session going on right now that looks like rejuvenation of the Oregon meat processing inspection program is going to be passed. And so that's really a great step forward. We haven't had a state inspected program since back in the 70s. The customer on the retail end is realizing what the heck is going on here. And so I've been able to make linkages with those folks. It's pretty exciting, because every entity that I've been in touch with is totally on board with reinvestment in local and regional processing plants. So I think we're going to make some progress there.
What do you feel are the major issues standing in the way of fair cattle markets today?
Well, I think just like what Justin Tupper told you, It's the lack of competition in the marketplace and lack of market transparency. I think we've got such a manipulated, well, not think, I mean, it's so obvious. We've got such a manipulated market right now that it's just corrupt. And I'm just hopeful that this Department of Justice investigations really gets down to the nuts and bolts of exposing it. And, anybody that has a brain, we have to have the processing and the packing industry to get our product to the consumer, but monopolization of that business is just horrendous. How anybody can look at it and not be concerned about the collusion between the four packing entities and how blatant it is. Their greed is insatiable. I think maybe they finally caused a big enough, they've shot themselves in the foot this time by just being that rotten.
So you mentioned the DOJ investigation. Do you think we'll see results from this? Obviously, we had the investigation into the Holcomb plant fire. Granted, that was just the USDA. But what are your thoughts on the DOJ investigation overall into the meat packers?
Yeah, well, I think the Department of Justice will mean a lot more possible consequences. I think it's going to be much more legitimate, really interrupt or maybe really get into the meat of the matter of what the facts are. As I listened and talked to different people, the Packers and Stockyard Act, basically it was 100 years ago when it was enacted, and it did have teeth back in the day of actual penalties and consequences for market control and monopolization. But the way that I've understood it is that there's really no investigative arm anymore in the Packers and Stockyard, section of the USDA. And so, if they can't have subpoena power and indictment and really bring consequences, to serious investigation, then it's really of no use. But my hope is that the Department of Justice is a whole different attitude, and that once they get into it, they're going to do really intrusive investigation and find out what the facts of the matter are. And so that's my hope, is that it's going to mean something this time. I think the inroads and the linkages with USDA and the Packers is too close. In reality, I think you're looking at crony capitalism. You're looking at huge big business infiltrating and paying off. Maybe that's too strong a word, but that's what my basic belief is, that there's too close a connection there somehow of there to be any true oversight. And that's the other thing that I think is so great. We're not asking Congress or anyone to implement or to enact new laws. We have plenty of laws on the books to correct this situation. They just need to have the guts to investigate and go forward with court action.
How do you feel that we restore competition within our cattle markets?
I think what we have to do is promote, these smaller packing plants, just more competition. And, like with what we're experiencing now with reinstating the Oregon program for inspection, is get rid of the red tape and the nonsense of these bureaucratic hurdles that make it impossible for smaller plants to be able to be inspected. I mean, the cleanliness, by all means, we're not trying to shortcut or make it less sanitary or anything like that. We've got to maintain human health and food security and all of that, and the consumer has to have the highest level of confidence in that, of course. So that's a given. These crazy rules about, like, one I can think of offhand is that a USDA inspector has to have their own office and restroom facilities to be able to be a USDA facility. Well, that's just crazy. That is promoted by big business because they can afford that. The smaller processing plants can't afford that kind of crazy. I mean, there's no reason for it. And the other thing that we're trying to do too, in fact, I just had an email back from our state veterinarian of implementing a plan to make licensed veterinarians, was about a 2-week training deal from FSIS to make them able to be certified inspectors for these plants. So that would fill the human resource gap, maybe actually having inspectors being able to do this. So.
You mentioned that you have very little to no negotiated cash trade up in your neck of the woods. What are your thoughts on Senator Chuck Grassley's 5014 legislation that would increase negotiated cash trade?
Oh, it's absolutely great, because these two entities that I just spoke of here in the Northwest, AgriBeef and Tyson Foods, they would have to be I don't even know how they would. I mean, it's been so long since it's been done that it would really be earth shaking to have that happen. Yeah, no, I think it absolutely. And thank goodness for Chuck Grassley. My gosh, he's been fighting this battle for 20. I mean, I feel a real kinship to him because he's in the 20 plus, multiple decades fighting for this. And so, boy, do I understand how long it's been. So I think it's great. And then the other thing that I think is so great now is like I say, the consumer, the retail customer is now realizing how they have been screwed too. Not only on the lack of supply in the stores, but also on the price structure. And so they're pretty ticked off too. So we've got a lot bigger number of people that are upset over this that will get the attention of policymakers. And honestly, I've had great help along these lines with our Senator Ron Wyden here in Oregon. He's a Democrat, and politically he and I we're on opposite ends of the scale, but he has been the only one that has really taken this on. And we actually had a phone conference call with him last week, and he committed to really getting USDA and FSIS to work with Oregon Department of Ag to get this state inspection program up and going again. There's a lot of positive. I don't want to get overly optimistic, but I've never had this many different stakeholders and, from one end of the spectrum to the other be totally on the same wavelength to try to get this done. So it's really good.
We're living in a time when consumers want to know where their products come from, especially food that they purchase. What are your thoughts on AMCO?
Yeah, it's totally necessary. I mean, it's just a no-brainer that it should be everything else that we buy, from shirts to shoes to grapes to other produce, has a sticker on it identifying where it originates from. Mm-hmm. I guess the thing that I would like to get away from is I think that the title of AMCO is so radioactive and it carries so much baggage with it that people will either be you're one way or the other, and I'm for it. I mean, in no way, shape, or form have I mean, it's totally necessary, but I think we need to change the structure of the title, like product identity or source origination or something different. Mm-hmm. So many times when I've brought it up, they just basically close their minds like you're some kind of raging, radical idiot, and they don't even know what they're talking about. But it has such a history to it. I mean, I'm all for it. So don't get me wrong. I am not trying to water it down or anything else. But I just think to get the discussion back to a level of common sense or to have a conversation about the legitimacy of it, that we need to change the title. It's just a absolute no-brainer. And for all the talking points that these packing houses can't, it's too expensive to keep track. It's such a falsehood. I mean, they keep track of the niche market meat that comes through there, and basically it's just such a lie. So yes, the consumer definitely should know what the definition is, and having a sticker on it like it is now, a product of the USA, and all it has to be done is maybe repackaged and can be from some foreign country. There's no way that can be justified.
About a month ago, President Trump made the statement that he wanted to eliminate trade deals where we import cattle into the United States. What are your thoughts on imports of beef and cattle into the United States?
God bless President Trump. I hope that doesn't get watered down. I mean, that was totally ad hoc, and you could almost hear the deafening silence of the importers and the packing industry and NCBA of thinking, oh my gosh, the crap really hit the fan right there. Yeah, and I don't want to even pretend to be I know so little about the importation and all of that, the intricacies of that, but holy cow, Namibia, as I understand it, they have active foot and mouth disease in that country, and it's just crazy. And then look at the problems that we've had from Brazil with their tainted meat. Their inspection of what they're doing down there is nowhere near. I mean, no wonder I'm surprised we don't have more foodborne illnesses in the meat product coming in. The traceability, it just exemplifies why it needs to be able to be traced exactly where it came from because of that. And, I'm not opposed to fair trade, but we've been screwed for so many years, and it just continues. And all it does is line the pockets of the packing industry because they're able to, of course, I'm not telling you anything, but, here they are able to import this cheap crap and then blend it off with our high-quality product, and it's marketable.
If we don't get some changes made within our cattle markets and these consumers continue to see high prices in their grocery stores, do you think there's a chance we could price ourselves out of a product?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we have got to make a linkage with our consumer, because my position has always been, even on environmental issues, I want the consumer to know what I'm doing out here, because I'm a good steward of what I'm doing. My basic motivation, of course, is to see a better economic return on the beef industry to the producer, because that's what my kids and my grandchildren won't even have the opportunity to think about being a rancher or farmer if this structure doesn't change. And also on the flip side, the consumer we have got to get closer connected to the consumer, and however we make that chain happen of rancher, producer to consumer, customer has got to happen, because the more they know about us, the more partnerships we'll have, and the more unity of message it will have about good, wholesome food and at a reasonable price, and people can stay in business that way. So we just continue to see the erosion of our rural communities, and it's almost, rural communities that used to be vibrant and strong 40 years ago are nothing now but ghost towns. One reason is because what happened to the timber industry, of course, how that was decimated because of the extremist positions on spotted owl and all that. But now the only thing left in our rural communities is agriculture. And so we've got to get this straightened out, or we've lost the fabric of America, in my opinion.
If you could sum it up into one sentence, what does the cattle industry need most today?
Just fair, competitive markets, and the opportunity to adjust to what the customer and the consumer wants, which is product identity, source origin, let them know what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I guess I'm a firm believer in the truth will make things right, and I seriously do believe that. So get the corrupted monopolization, anti-competitive market manipulation, get that corrected, allow for infrastructure to come back in, and our regional local processing plants to be able to get from producer to consumer in an efficient, streamlined, effective manner, and you will all be amazed at how fast it would correct itself.
That's all I have for questions. Do you have any other comments you want to make about the cattle markets or the cattle industry as a whole, or any specific issues you face out in Oregon that you'd like to touch on?
Yeah, I guess the only other thing that frustrates me is that I wish more of our producers, ranchers, would be vocal and get involved and let their voices be heard and get more active politically, because policymakers want to hear us. So I guess that would be my one thing that I would really want to see have happen. But then on the flip side, I want to also maintain a level of optimism, because I do think that we're on a road that we could really change the dynamics of how we've been pressured and under recognized for the validity that we are. I think we have a real opportunity here, but it's going to take everybody pulling together and of unity of message with a voice.
One more question. With what you just said, as a cattle industry, we're known for fighting more amongst ourselves than for fighting the issues that are trying to tear our cattle industry down. Do you think there is any chance that our large cattle organizations, NCBA, U.S. Cattlemen's, RCAF, some of the large state affiliates, do you think we could ever get on the same page and fight for the same thing, essentially?
I definitely do. I definitely do. I've had multiple discussions with board members of RCAF and all the basic things. We are so much on the same page. I don't think I guess I have to be more reticent about NCBA, because there has to be a level of integrity instated there before their policy is directed and driven by the meat packing cartel. And so I think there's some things that maybe we want to work together with, but on the basic premise of how important it is to reestablish an economy out here. Yes, I do believe that we can come together, and I think there's discussions that are happening that are of the same voice and same purpose to go forward with. Like with U.S. Cattlemen's and RCAF. U.S. Cattlemen's is more on the political side of trying to get things done, and RCAF is more on the legal side of getting things done, which are both great, important tools. And so I think those two strengths coming together would be nothing but beneficial to the American rancher. We need to just reinstate a level of honesty and straightforwardness in what our discussions are, and the priority of keeping the family rancher and farmer on the ground in the scheme of things is so important. I mean, if you can focus in on that and be honest, all of us should be able to come together in a single unified voice.